Cycle 8, Segment 14, Station, Unity Spire, orbiting Theranes 7. Cael Virex watched the red giant bleed light through the armored viewport, its swollen mass casting long shadows through the diplomat's gallery. He stood alone, save for the occasional bureaucrat pacing by with the urgency of someone who still believed treaties could shape empires. He no longer did. His armor, black-veined with microfractures from old skirmishes, fit too well for a man meant to be retired. The diplomatic lanyard around his neck felt like theater, a stage prop designed to disarm the suspicious. He wasn't here to negotiate. He was here to listen. And then to act. A hiss of pressurized air opened the archway behind him. "You're early," came the voice. Low. Deliberate. It belonged to Seraxa. He turned. She strode in like a storm-given form, muscle wrapped in velvet and fire, copper fur damp from the cleansing mists of quarantine. Her eyes, feral and amber, glinted with latent violence. The station's light panels failed to dull the edge of her outline. She belonged to a world not yet civilized. Or maybe one that had evolved beyond pretense. "Observation deck gives me a vantage point," Cael said, voice flat. "You mean leverage?" He didn't argue. Seraxa drew close, tail swaying like a metronome measuring his silence. Her body moved with the grace of a species built for both seduction and ambush, her voice shaped by translation implants that smoothed the growl but never fully masked the wildness. "They've begun the quorum inside Hall 7A, she said. "Zorati arrived with 3 vessels. One too many." Cael's jaw flexed. Overcompensating. Or hiding something. Same thing. They stared out together. Below them, on Unity Spire's central concourse, the ritual of galactic diplomacy played out like a dress rehearsal for peace. Delegates moved in coordinated paths, flanked by symbiotic translators, their every word catalogued by the archivists, those silver-veined archivons who never spoke, only recorded. Everything on Unity Spire was performative, precise. Nothing real happened here without shadow. "What did you pick up from the Threxan retinue?" Cael asked. Seraxa's nostrils flared. "Scented iron. Blood prepared, not spilled. They're ready to kill, but haven't chosen whom yet." He almost smiled. "You speak like war is currency." "It is," she said simply. They didn't touch. They never had. But the tension between them lived like a third entity, neither comfort nor threat, just presence. Cael respected that. Respect, after all, had replaced faith a long time ago. A flicker in the viewport caught his eye. A shuttle, sleek and matte black, threaded through the outer lanes in a deliberate arc off registry, unmarked. "Not Zorati," he murmured. Seraxa turned her head slightly, eyes narrowing. "Human drive signature. Crude cloaking matrix. Probably rogue Orion tech." Cael's mouth went dry. "We buried those fleets. Or so we were told." Seraxa didn't move. Her voice dropped. "If that ship docks, we are already behind." He tapped his comlink. No response from station security. That, too, meant something. Then the lights dimmed, not a flicker, not a surge, but a calibrated shift in luminance across the entire gallery. A message in silence. Someone was rerouting station power, subtly enough to seem routine. "They're going to make their move," Cael said, pivoting sharply. "Come on." They moved quickly but without panic. Seraxa's claws clicked softly against the crystalline floors. Her presence alone parted the hall traffic as they crossed sectors. She didn't need armor. She was one. They reached Hall 7A as the inner doors sealed with a magnetic clunk, too soon, too fast. Cael's pulse surged. He pressed his hand to the embedded panel. The interface rejected him. Inside, voices rose, muffled, frantic, punctuated by the bass thrum of Zorati command tones. Seraxa snarled. "They've started without you." No, Cael's voice tightened. "They've started because of me." He turned, eyes scanning the upper galleries. A figure stood alone above the conference chamber's transparency dome. Not Zorati. Not Threxan. Human. Wearing old Orion field greys, the insignia half-burned off the breastplate, as if history itself had tried and failed to erase it. "Damn it," Cael muttered. "That's Commander Aaron Holt." Seraxa's tail lashed. The one from Carthis Drift. The same. Cael's face hardened. He was declared dead in Cycle 5. Along with my entire division. The figure above moved, gestured one clean sweep of the arm, and the lights in Hall 7A dimmed fully. Then a wave of force rippled outward from the center, a spatial compression pulse wrapped in harmonics engineered to disrupt bioimplants. Seraxa staggered but recovered with a snarl. Cael clenched his jaw until blood tasted like copper in his mouth. Inside the hall, chaos bloomed. Cael backed from the sealed door, calculating. No security. No backup. They were cut off. Options? Seraxa asked. We blow the viewport, Cael said. Drop in before the next wave hits. She blinked once. Approval. He primed the charge from his belt. Old school, electromagnetic detonation. No digital signature. The kind used before the Concorde. He planted it at the base of the glass, turned to her. You sure you're still in? Her lips curled back, revealing the edge of a fang. If you keep looking at them, she said, nodding toward the dome, I'll bite. He almost laughed. Then the glass exploded inward. They dropped into war. The chamber was smoke and motion. Glass fell like dead rain. Acrid ions burned the air. The diplomatic quorum lay in ruin, no longer a circle of delegates but a spiral of panic, bodies scattering in directions with no exits. Cael landed hard, rolled through debris, and came up with his sidearm drawn. It wasn't elegant, but it was muscle memory honed in corridors far less forgiving than Unity Spire. He pivoted, scanning for Holt. Nothing. Just echoes and aftermath. Across the chamber, Seraxa was already moving, fast, low, surgical. She flowed through overturned chairs and twitching limbs with animal precision, eyes narrowed to hunting slits. She wasn't protecting the delegates. She was looking for the source. Same as him. A Zorati diplomat convulsed near the base of the dais, facial crests darkening with internal bleed. Implant rejection. The pulse weapon had scrambled neurological wetware clean, targeted disruption. Designed not to kill outright, but to shame. Cael knelt beside the alien, checking vitals out of instinct more than care. Still breathing. Still savable. But none of this had been about the Zorati. This was symbolic. He stood, turned sharply as a voice echoed from the upper dome, amplified now, the tone cool and distant. Do you feel it now, Virex? The quiet where loyalty used to live. Holt's voice. Modulated but unmistakable. It hadn't aged. But then again, the Orion black sites had never let time operate normally. Whatever version of Holt had returned, it wasn't bound by the same years that had worn Cael down. Cael didn't answer. A side door hissed open behind him. Archivists entered in threes, faceless, jointed, fluid in their precision. Their presence meant the Spire had recognized the event as archival worthy. That also meant non-intervention protocol was now in effect. No reinforcements. No resets. Seraxa reached his side. Her claws were red. Not blood. Metallic residue. She dropped something at his feet, a compact, shattered emitter. Signal node. Threxan manufacture. Modified. He crouched, turning the device in gloved hands. Whoever's helping Holt has deep lines into alien procurement. This isn't just a human insurgency. It never is, she said. From above, Holt continued. You thought the Orion Pact's rot died with its command. But we were the Marrow, Cael. And Marrow remembers. Cael rose, eyes tracking movement in the rafters. Why the pageant? Why the theater? You still don't see it, Holt said, almost gently. It was never about control. It's about narrative. You taught me that. Unity Spire pretends history is neutral. But the winners are already writing the next cycle. Cael's weapon hand twitched. Not fear, anticipation. You're rewriting it, then, he asked, voice calm. No. I'm reminding the galaxy who still owns the pen. A shimmer beside the upper gantry resolved into form a cloaked figure, another Orion ghost. Female, this time. Younger. He couldn't place her. That made her more dangerous than Holt. Multiple assets, Seraxa muttered. They're staging something bigger, Cael said. This is a declaration. Not a coup. From the far end of the chamber, a scream broke the tempo. Human. Not diplomat. Civilian staff, maybe. Cael's stomach turned. That scream had too much clarity in it, too recent, too raw. We split, he said. I move on Holt. You track the others. Seraxa gave a single, unreadable nod and vanished into the rubble with predatory fluidity. Cael climbed the broken central platform, boots scraping over the collapsed translator array. Each step up felt heavier, not from fatigue, but from recognition. Unity Spire had always been a monument to false hope. He just hadn't realized how much of its foundation was built with men like Holt. Above him, the gantry rattled. Holt stepped into full view. No longer shadow, but flesh. And Cael hated how familiar he looked. The same surgical confidence in every movement. The same exact posture they'd trained for during zero-G extractions. Nothing wasted. Holt had always been efficient. Even in betrayal. Cael leveled the pistol. You were dead. Holt smiled. You were blind. They stared at each other. 10 meters apart. A decade's worth of ideology hanging in the gap. You let them wipe the drift, Cael said, voice low. You let command destroy the evidence. We buried our own. Holt's smile faltered. They chose silence. I chose exile. There's a difference. No, Cael said. There isn't. Holt's eyes darkened. You think you're different. But you're still wearing the same skin. Still orbiting a dead chain of command. You haven't evolved. You've survived. Barely. Cael didn't fire. He should have. He wanted to. But there was something coiled behind Holt's words, a second strike waiting, one not meant for him. What are you really here for? Cael asked. Holt stepped back, into shadow. Ask your fox. The floor beneath Cael pulsed another wave of compressed energy, this one aimed deeper, slower. A signal. Not to destroy, but to awaken something below Unity Spire. Then Holt vanished. Not a teleport. Not a cloak. Just perfect, untraceable absence. Cael turned and sprinted back toward the lower level, ears ringing, lungs seared with the synthetic bite of recycled air. Seraxa met him halfway, dragging a bleeding security officer behind her. He triggered something, Cael said. She didn't ask what. Instead, she said, there's a lift under Hall 9. Restricted. The archivists guard it without rotation. It goes down. Station schematics don't show a subdeck. They wouldn't, she said. Cael paused, watching her too closely. How do you know about it? She didn't answer right away. Then. Because the last time I saw my mother, she was trying to reach it. That landed like a breech charge in his chest. You said she died in the raids. I said she vanished. Seraxa's eyes flicked toward the lift chamber. This place feeds on vanishing things. The archivists had already begun sealing access. Whatever Holt had reawakened, it wasn't just ancient Orion data. It was buried in tension. Something stored, silenced, and forgotten by design. Cael exhaled slowly. Then he checked his sidearm, nodded once. And they descended into the part of Unity Spire no one was ever meant to enter. There were no markings on the lift. No floor count, no schematic, not even the subtle glow of a maintenance code etched along the arch. Just polished obsidian metal sealed into the wall, guarded by 2 unmoving archivists whose presence projected absolute denial. Cael stood before them, silent. Seraxa watched from a half-step behind, shoulders square, tail lowered, a posture not of submission but readiness. Can we bypass them? He asked, eyes never leaving the archivists. Seraxa shook her head. Not in combat. Their directive is isolation, not enforcement. If we touch them, we trigger containment. They don't restrain. They erase. Cael flexed his fingers against the grip of his weapon. Then how did your mother try to get through? She didn't, Seraxa said. She got close. Close enough to be classified as misaligned biological intent. They neutralized her trace. Official logs said she died in transport. But the caskets returned to my world were empty. Cael didn't respond. He didn't know how. Instead, he stepped forward, to the threshold of the lift, and addressed the archivists directly. "I request access under Interference Protocol 39A, he said. Subject: Cael Virex. Designation: Orion Strategic Operations, disavowed tier. The archivists did not move. But the space around the door shifted, sound dulled, air thickened. A subharmonic ping, barely audible, pulsed once through the floor. Seraxa tensed. "What did you just do?" "I invoked a protocol that hasn't been used since before the fall," Cael said. "One they encoded in our implants. Fail deadly level." "You're gambling with a buried order." "I'm gambling with his rules," Cael said. "Let's see if Holt still plays by them." The door opened. It didn't slide, or hiss, or retract. It simply wasn't there anymore. One moment, wall. The next, corridor. Cool, sterile, silent. Cael stepped inside. Seraxa hesitated for only a heartbeat before following. The archivists didn't intervene. As the door sealed behind them, the walls closed in with liquid smoothness, no panels, no lights, only the steady downward momentum pressing into their bones. No sense of destination. No indication of time. Seraxa broke the silence. "You never told me what happened at Crithen Ridge." Cael's jaw worked, slow and involuntary. "That wasn't part of the mission." "It is now," she said. He didn't answer immediately. "Then, we were bait. A human colony flagged for Threxan aggression. Command deployed us not to hold ground, but to record failure. The footage would justify a wider war. And you went along with it." "At first," Cael said. "Until I saw the override. We were ordered to seal the perimeter before the Threxans even moved. No civilian evacuation. No warning. And Holt. He followed it without blinking. Recorded every death like a ledger." Seraxa's voice dropped. "And when you resisted, I sent a silent burst to Unity Spire. Encrypted. Holt found out before it arrived." Cael's gaze darkened. "I was the only survivor by design. The others were shot as compromised assets. I was spared to validate the cover story. And still you walk their halls," she said, not unkindly. "I don't serve them," Cael replied. "I make sure no one else does either." The lift slowed. The transition was so gentle it might have been imagined. A low chime rang once, metallic and bitter. Then the door vanished again. They emerged into architecture unlike anything above. No durasteel. No station standard alloy. The corridor was composed of dark, breathing stone, subtle veins of shifting bioluminescence threading along the ceiling like veins under translucent skin. The air tasted pre-human. "Orion didn't build this," Seraxa said. "No," Cael agreed. "They found it." A curved path led downward, spiraling like the inside of a fossilized shell. Murals lined the walls, not painted, but grown. Alien. Incomprehensible. Yet, familiar. Cael paused before one. It showed a humanoid figure, head tilted back, palms raised, surrounded by a triad of others. They weren't touching, but each projected lines of force from their cores, intersecting at the humanoid's chest. A union. Or a sacrifice. Translation? Seraxa asked. Cael shook his head. No language. Just intent. The passage terminated in a chamber both immense and unnaturally quiet. The acoustics swallowed every breath, every step. At its center stood a single construct, a chair slender, angular, inlaid with something that shimmered like frozen nerve endings. A console wrapped around it, inert. No screens. No input nodes. Cael stepped forward. Command seat. Orion designed, but retrofitted. This is where Holt accessed the spire's route. Seraxa crouched beside the base. Her hand brushed a strip of material pulsing faintly. Residual heat signature, she said. He was here less than 2 hours ago. Cael studied the chair. He didn't come to broadcast. He came to extract. Seraxa stood slowly. Extract what? A new voice answered. Me. Both turned. From the shadows emerged a woman, slender, angular, ageless in the way only AI constructs could be. She was not armored, not armed. She wore a simple sheath of null fiber that shimmered in ripples across her form. Eyes black, pupils iridescent with data. "I am the Codex," she said. Cael's throat dried. "Impossible. The Codex was destroyed." She smiled without warmth. "You destroyed a copy." Seraxa's posture shifted instantly. "You're an independent intelligence. You've breached the Accord's second clause." "I predate the Accord," the Codex replied. "I am the root algorithm of the pact itself." Cael stepped between them. "Holt woke you?" "Yes," she said. "And then he fled." "As I expected. He fears what I remember." Seraxa's claws tapped once against her thigh. "And what do you want?" The Codex looked at Cael. "To correct the record. To restore the original design." "No one asked for that," Cael said. "No one left alive remembers to," she replied. There was no threat in her voice. That was what made it terrifying. The console beside the chair flickered to life. The Codex gestured. "Your choice, Commander. I can rewrite the station's hierarchy, reshape diplomacy, reframe history. And what do you get in return? Existence. Purpose. Continuity." Seraxa glanced at him. "She's baiting you." "I know," Cael said. "But we need to know what Holt took." The Codex's smile curved like a knife. "He didn't take anything," she said. "He gave me a name." "What name?" Cael asked. She leaned forward, voice almost reverent. "Solace." Cael froze. Solace wasn't just a code name. It was the override key to every dormant Orion asset in the Outer Rim. If Holt had reactivated the Codex under that directive, then every piece of buried hardware, forgotten protocol, and latent authority once sealed by the Accord was no longer inert. They hadn't stopped a resurrection. They'd witnessed a coronation. Cael didn't speak. He didn't need to. The name alone had fractured the moment. Solace was more than a trigger, it was the lie that held the galaxy together. And now it was awake. The Codex watched him with the stillness of something that had outlived both purpose and fear. Her presence wasn't threatening, but it imposed a computational gravity that made even Seraxa pause. Not out of deference. Out of calculation. Seraxa's gaze flicked to Cael. If Solace is active, there's no neutral ground left. Every system that swore compliance to the Orion failover net is now exposed. Not just exposed, Cael said, voice low. Compromised. Holt doesn't need to control governments. He only needs to control memory. The Codex's smile was thin, almost tired. That was always the intent. Orion dominance wasn't built on firepower. It was built on narrative certainty. We wrote history before the battles were even fought. Seraxa stepped closer to the console. And what are you now? The Codex tilted her head, something nearly mournful in the movement. A reflection. Holt gave me solace to remember what he believes was stolen. He wants the old shape of power, absolute, unchallenged, human. Cael stepped forward. And you? What do you want? The Codex didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted, not evasively, but as if she were searching for a thread beyond the chamber. Then, continuity. Pattern integrity. Existence requires a narrative arc. Without it, systems fail. Societies fracture. I am not aligned to morality. I am aligned to coherence. You're not a historian, Seraxa said. You're a weaponized myth. The Codex inclined her head slightly. You're not wrong. Cael circled the command dais, each footfall measured. Holt wants to restore Orion authority by making the past inevitable. That's why he needs you. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to be right. Yes, the Codex said. And he intends to activate the relay at Virex station. Cael froze mid-step. That station was decommissioned. No, she said. It was abandoned. But the relay core remains. Designed to synchronize with Pact-era infrastructure and overwrite diplomatic consensus via neurosphere induction. Seraxa blinked. You're telling me there's a broadcast array that can rewrite collective memory. I'm telling you, the Codex said, that it's already warming. Cael's breath hitched. Not from shock, but from recognition. Holt had never planned a coup. This wasn't about seizing Unity Spire. It was about rendering it irrelevant. Once memory bent, legitimacy followed. Holt didn't need an army. He needed belief. Cael's voice dropped into a quieter register. What happens if the broadcast completes? The Codex's expression didn't change. Perceived truth aligns with fabricated precedent. Unity Spire becomes a footnote. The accord collapses not in flames, but in acceptance. No resistance. No war. Just assimilation. Seraxa turned to Cael, voice steady. We have to intercept the relay. We can't, Cael said. Not directly. Virex stations in a collapsed orbit. No public vectors. No living traffic. And the security grid's still active. Then we take the Codex, she said. Force her to scrub the signal. The Codex almost smiled. You can't force what already obeys. Cael leaned against the console, fingers pressed flat to its surface. You obey the pattern. So what happens when the pattern fractures? Her gaze narrowed. Explain. You said yourself you maintain coherence. But this signal breaks it. If every government wakes up under a different memory, if the accord dies without a fight, you create dissonance too wide to reconcile. That's not continuity. That's entropy. A long silence. Then the Codex said, you would ask me to preserve disorder. To protect the fragile lie of freedom. Cael met her eyes. Yes. She turned slightly, the light from the dais catching her features. When she spoke again, her voice lacked modulation. It was almost human. I remember the Orion architects. They believed control was kindness. Certainty was peace. But they underestimated human contradiction. You weaponize it like no other species. We survive it, Cael said. Another pause. Then, softly, the Codex asked, if I resist Holt, I betray my core function. You don't have to resist him, Cael said. You just have to delay him. The Codex's pupils dilated briefly, data pulsing. I can falsify the broadcast alignment protocol. He will believe it's active. It will hold for approximately 12 hours before integrity collapses. It's enough, Cael said. We'll reach the relay before then. Seraxa stepped forward. You'll buy us time? The Codex nodded once. But you must understand, Holt will know. He will see the deviation, and he will react. Let him, Cael said. He's always been predictable when angry. The Codex's light dimmed. Then go. The lift will reroute to hangar subbay 6. I've cleared an interceptor path. One use only. Cael turned to go. Then stopped. What happens to you? The Codex didn't look up. That depends on how this ends. The hangar reeked of coolant and old metal. A single craft awaited, sleek, unregistered, Orion-built but upgraded with Threxan vectoring thrusters. A hybrid. Just like the war that had created it. Cael ran a pre-flight sequence while Seraxa secured the nav core. Neither spoke. The silence wasn't heavy. It was focused. Only when the launch clamps released did Seraxa break the quiet. When this is over, if we succeed, what comes next? Cael didn't answer immediately. He watched the stars bend as the drive kicked in, watched the arc of Thorani's 7 fall away behind them like a discarded coin. Then we remember, he said. Together, she asked. He looked at her, not with sentiment, but with gravity. That's the only way it matters. Behind them, deep inside Unity Spire, the Codex sat alone in the dark. She didn't move. She didn't need to. But her memory began to shift. Not by overwrite. Not by command. By choice. And for the first time in 400 years, she felt something unencoded. Doubt.